everybody leaks when they are not decrying leaks. And that, of course, raises the question of what is a leak? Everybody uses anonymous quotes. I should stop for a second. Not everybody. Two branches of government leak like sieves, the executive branch and the legislative branch. The judiciary, I'm here to tell you, does not leak, and I'll get back to that at the end. I learned that leaks, so-called, can be a good thing. It can be important to be able to speak as a senior administration official about some initiative that's coming, to float it out there in a way that you'll be able to gauge response. It can be important on the Hill to be able to do that. It can be very important to do what people would call leak. We used to talk inside meetings about the New York Times test or the Washington Post test. How will we feel when this is on the front page of the Washington Post or the New York Times? It often changed decisions or drove them in a slightly different direction because of the figurative presence of that fourth branch of government. Remarkably powerful. When you go to see the president in the Oval Office, as I did many mornings to do the terrorism briefing with the director of the FBI, you stand in an anteroom. And in that anteroom is kind of a coffee table, maybe a little higher than a coffee table. And seated on that table every morning are major newspapers from around the country, and then a thick printout of the clips, summaries of news stories that touch all parts of the federal government, organized by branch of the government. At the Department of Justice, every morning I would get emailed a version of that that focused on the Department of Justice's issues, and then there'd be a hard copy on my desk every morning. It is one of the very first things that the seniors, the elites in the federal government read every morning. I would get a terrorist threat briefing, and I would look at the clips to see what the media was saying about the work we were doing and what had ended up in the media that maybe we didn't want there. Extremely powerful figurative presence and literal presence. Official Washington has an obsession with what goes on in the media for a whole lot of good reasons, ones that I think you can imagine. They care the way the world is understanding what the government is doing. The prosecutors care about the messages of deterrence getting out. People care about what's said about them personally. But the headline is, the headlines matter tremendously and shape everything that goes on inside of Washington. Some secrets must be kept. The first thing that surprised me is that not everything leaks. Okay? That remarkable story about what happened that night in the hospital, that didn't leak. Because I didn't leak it, and Chuck didn't leak it, and the people who were with me that night did not talk to the press about that. It was 3 years later that story got out when I was under oath and asked about it. Okay? Not everything leaks. But some things do leak and hurt important efforts, like law enforcement efforts and national security, counterterrorism efforts in particular. All of us would agree that some secrets must be kept, have to be kept.